All right, we're still talking California with two Toms. Tom McClitnock, Republican from California, one of their most famous tax cut crusaders, and Tom Campbell, former California State Budget Director, currently economics and law professor at Chapman University. Welcome back, Tom. Tom McClitnock, what is the most politically viable way to move forward? In other words, if we have some understanding of the problem, which is obviously you've got too little money and you're spending too much money, what do you think is the most politically viable way to try to close that gap?
Unfortunately, there is no politically viable way at this point. They passed a tipping point about 2 years ago where conventional means are not going to address the problem. They tried raising taxes. It's actually caused their revenues to plunge. They're running out of credit. Their interest costs are eating them alive. And there's only so many line item reductions you can make in the budget without cutting into vital services. What they're going to have to do is restructure the basic service delivery systems, decentralize, reduce the bureaucracies, and tell the unions to go pound sand. Unfortunately, they still lack the political will to do so, and even if they had the political will, they're out of time.
Tom Campbell, your thoughts? Where to from here?
I think that Tom McClitnock has it right, and I want to compliment Tom McClitnock on his leadership when he was a state senator. He was very much in the lead to hold the line on all of that, what we call formulaic spending. You put a formula in, you pass it once, and then it just increases expenditure year after year after year.
Yeah.
One point to bear in mind, when you hear that $26 billion number, about $10 billion of that is the automatic increases. So if you were to do a hard freeze, which is to say, look, just don't spend as much as don't spend any more than we did last year, you would bring that number down by about $10 billion. Now, that still leaves a $16 billion gap, substantial. But bear in mind, we're not talking about a cut the way a Californian household would call a cut, which is you spend less. We're talking about a cut from what it would otherwise be. So the real number would probably be less if we just did a freeze.
I always find it entertaining when we're like, oh, $16 billion is so much money, but we're now $14 trillion to the American banking system.
Right.
Anyway, we're not going to have time for this, Tom McClitnock, but I'm going to I'll tease you with it, and then we'll talk more about it at a future meeting. But what about the legalization of marijuana and taxation? In other words, California is a state that already retails marijuana and licenses marijuana production for a specific community. Though this would seem to be an opportunity for those in that universe to push for legalization and taxation.
Well, I think the first step would be legalizing industrial hemp. We've had several measures attempting to do that. But that doesn't get into the drug questions, but that's a very viable product that was grown for centuries in California. It's legal in other states to grow. It ought to be legal in California.
Yeah, and there's just a bunch of tax money, obviously, there, and California already is retailing and producing the product. Anyway, nice to talk to both of you guys. Thank you very much. We'll continue this conversation. I'm sure of that. Lots more still to come here on the morning meeting. Joe Biden